Imagine spending years working on something, planning it, testing it, refining every detail. And then, at the exact moment it's meant to succeed, it mysteriously disappears. No explanation, no trace, and no way to ever recover it. In December 1999, that's exactly what happened to a NASA spacecraft called the Mars Polar Lander, designed to explore the Martian South Pole for the very first time. Moments before it was meant to land on the red planet, it vanished without a single final message. It is as if the lander simply disappeared. Even today, no confirmed landing site or wreckage has ever been discovered. So what happened to NASA's lost Mars Polar Lander? For nearly 11 months, the Mars Polar Lander travelled quietly through the darkness of space before reaching Mars in late 1999. Then came the part every mission team fears, the aptly nicknamed 7 Minutes of Terror. The entry, descent, and landing, a phase where everything must happen perfectly in exactly the right order. When landing on Mars, there are no second chances. On December 3rd, 1999, the Mars Polar Lander hit the thin upper atmosphere of Mars, travelling at more than 20,000 kilometers per hour. For a few seconds, the spacecraft was swallowed by superheated plasma. A few minutes later, the parachute deployed, a violent jolt, and the lander slowed sharply. Its heat shield fell away, revealing instruments and sensors waking into action. From here on, everything depended on timing. At just the right moment, the lander separated from the parachute assembly. Landing was just minutes away. Certain mysteries of Mars's South Pole were moments away from getting answered. But then, the lander vanished. Back at Mission Control on Earth, everything still looked normal at the time of the descent. After all, a communication blackout was planned during the landing phase and wasn't expected to re-establish until 24 minutes after. Engineers were anxiously waiting for a single confirmation signal that said, "I made it. I landed safely." But as they eagerly waited and waited and waited, nothing arrived. They replayed telemetry, searching for clues of what might have happened. They tried different antennas, different frequencies, different listening windows, stretching every procedure they had for weeks. But the only result was silence. Somewhere in the cold southern plains of Mars, the mission had ended before it had truly begun. So, what happened? Well, to find that out, we need to go back years before the lander ever left Earth. When a spacecraft vanishes without a trace, the answer usually isn't found in its final seconds. It's often buried much earlier, in the decisions made years before it launched. And in the case of the Mars Polar Lander, those decisions were shaped by a major shift inside NASA itself. During the Apollo era, NASA had achieved the impossible. They put humans on the moon. But Apollo also left behind enormous cost, complex layers of approval, and missions so large that failure was unthinkable. By the 1990s, NASA wanted a different approach. So instead of one massive flagship mission every decade, the agency adopted a new philosophy, the faster, better, cheaper philosophy. The goal was to strip away Apollo-era bureaucracy, fewer reviews, smaller teams, and faster development cycles, aiming for more science for less cost. Each mission wouldn't need to do everything, it would just need to answer one specific question. And the Mars Polar Lander was arguably one of the most ambitious tests of that philosophy. Its target was the Martian South Pole, a region where temperatures can plunge to minus 153 degrees Celsius, nearly twice as cold as Earth's South Pole. The environment here is so extreme that NASA couldn't rely on a standard lander design. The mission needed something purpose-built. To counter the cold, the lander was timed to arrive during the Martian southern summer, when temperatures can warm to minus 80 degrees Celsius and higher. A brief summer window when sunlight returns and solar power becomes possible. The small dining table-sized lander was designed with a thermal protection system nonetheless. Things like insulation around its sensitive electronics, heat pipes that transferred warmth to specific areas, and a nighttime heater that ensured its vital systems didn't freeze as temperatures plummeted during the brutal polar nights. The mission was to study the South Pole's weather, dig into frozen soil, and search for frozen water locked away beneath the surface. Attached to the crew stage were also two microprobes, fittingly nicknamed Amundsen and Scott, after the legendary polar explorers who braved Earth's harshest frontiers to become the first to reach Earth's South Pole. The microprobes were designed to slam into the ground and transmit data from beneath the ice. But despite all of these high-tech gadgets and protective systems, this wasn't a long-term mission. NASA knew that in this region of Mars, the lander wouldn't likely survive the dark winter that was coming. Its mission was only planned to survive for up to 90 Martian days, long enough to return priceless data before the extreme winter cold finally claimed it. On paper, it was a perfect plan, but as we found out, something definitely did not go to plan. In the weeks that followed the disappearance, NASA began reconstructing the lander's final moments. With no signal and no images from the surface, investigators relied on simulations, engineering logs, and limited descent data only to try and piece together what happened. Could the parachute have detached too soon? Perhaps unstable winds in the thin Martian atmosphere tipped the lander during the descent. Maybe it was a hidden frost pocket that engulfed and sank the lander. The two microprobes vanished as well. They never transmitted data, and so it is unclear as to whether they impacted the ground or not. But as NASA meticulously worked through the limited information they had available, one thing stood out more than anything else. Something you might be surprised to hear. You see, when the legs unfolded during the descent, each one snapped into place with a firm mechanical jolt. This wasn't a malfunction, it was exactly how they were designed to open. But deep inside the spacecraft software, that jolt may have been misinterpreted. The touchdown sensors were so sensitive that they may have mistaken the vibration for actual contact with the surface. If that happened, the lander's computer would have believed the descent was complete, and the retro rockets, the engines slowing the final descent, would have shut down instantly, causing a catastrophic crash. Investigators concluded that the lander may have still been dozens of meters above the ground when the engines cut off. Instead of gently lowering itself down onto the ice, it fell hard. A fall like that could have destroyed its communications antenna instantly. In hindsight, the faster, better, cheaper philosophy can't be ignored. Tighter schedules likely meant fewer opportunities to catch subtle interactions, such as this one, between hardware and software. But one question still remains unanswered. Where did it crash? NASA's Mars Global Surveyor Orbiter looked for the crash site immediately after the disappearance and found nothing. Then years later, the far more sharper camera of the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter looked again, with no luck. Image by image, the region was scanned, but no wreckage has ever been spotted. No debris field has ever been seen. It was as if the lander had melted into the Martian landscape and disappeared forever. Then again, trying to find a 3.6 meter wide object in the vast, rugged polar landscape is probably like trying to find a specific needle in a haystack-sized pile of needles. Today, if you stood on the southern plains of Mars, you'd likely see nothing unusual, just ice and dust. But somewhere out there, beneath the drifting frost and sand, lies the lost Mars Polar Lander. Maybe it's shattered. Maybe it's still intact. Maybe it's preserved in the cold like a frozen woolly mammoth in the permafrost of Alaska. So what happened to the Mars Polar Lander? The truth is, nobody really knows. But one thing we do know is the Mars Polar Lander was built in an era that asked a spaceflight to be faster, cheaper, and better. And in the end, it became a reminder that when it comes to space exploration, nothing is fast and nothing is cheap. But it also reminds us why we keep trying. Because every mission, even the ones that vanish, teaches us how to reach a little farther next time. If you've made it this far, thank you. You are exactly the kind of person I make these videos for. So please do leave a comment and like the video. It helps more than you can imagine. And if you want to go one step further and help support the channel directly, why not consider becoming a V101 core member or patron? The links are in the description. It keeps this project going and gives you some nice perks, including your name in every single video and exclusive content. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.